Dan Heng is here with his brand new, thick, massive spear, and he's ready to thrust inside his allies and fill them up with the biggest shields you have ever seen. We are, of course, talking about Dan Heng, Peter. We're talking about Peter today, who took my advice in 3.0 and is now a physical preservation unit, who had some drama already before his release, because he's the highly anticipated sustain for Finon. We will discuss everything today, but before that, I need to give out a special disclaimer. Current leaks suggest that he will be free, which of course changes the perspective of my review. This means that I need to basically evaluate this guy twice. Once in the case he's free, and once in case it's just another clown like the promised Free Sunday in 2.7. So let's first of all start with his kit. Dan Heng is an attack scaling preservation unit who, thankfully, shields all allies and not just one. He also has no depart mechanic, does not deal 4 digits of damage, is not only restricted to 2 characters in the entire game, while costing 180 points, does not have an Eidolon that has Finon written all over it, and is not a fucking failure and disappointment to his entire family, who spends his free time screaming about unreleased Honkai Star Rail characters while constantly being compared to his successful cousin Roger, who has a loving wife and is on his way to become a successful neurosurgeon who buys everyone presents for every family dinner to show just how much fucking better he is! His core mechanic is tied to his skill, which will not only apply a huge AoE shield, but also summon a Soul Dragon, which Dan Heng can assign to an ally, counting as that ally summoned, not Dan Heng's. That ally is considered a Bondmate. The Bondmate will gain an attack buff equal to 15% of Dan Heng's own attack, so 600 attack if you can hit about 4k attack on Dan Heng. The dragon itself is super fast with 165 speed, and will shield and cleanse all allies when it acts. Additionally, each time the Bondmate uses an attack, Dan Heng will regenerate 5 energy, and the Soul Dragon will advance its action by 15%. Yes, this dragon is lightning fast. The combination of the dragon as well as Dan Heng's technique, basically applying his skill for free at the start of battle, results in him being able to give out shields that reach like 5k HP while not using any skill points. It's absolutely nuts. Dan Heng's ult will deal Synergies levels of damage to all enemies, and will enhance the Soul Dragon for 2 of its turns, which will make it do a follow-up attack that scales off of the Bondmate's attack instead of having an own scaling. See that, Synergies? That's how it's done. So to TLDR it, Dan Heng will give a summon to an ally and buff that ally by a small amount. The dragon will be insanely fast and apply billions of shields, making your team genuinely unkillable, and will be able to make it deal decent damage for 2 turns after he ults. The more the Bondmate can attack, the more energy Dan Heng and the more action advances the dragon will get. So Dan Heng just wants to be as fast as possible, while stacking as much attack as possible and ulting as much as possible. Which means that relic-wise, you can go like so many different 2-piece combinations, like 2-piece Musketeer, 2-piece Prisoner, 2-piece Sacrados, and so on. If this guy is free, I'm genuinely willing to call him the best free-to-play character in all of Honkai Star Rail. This is not satire. His shields are disgusting, and that's all I personally need from a sustain. We don't need Heisen to be the standard for sustain units. We really don't need to go down that path. As long as he can cleanse, keep the team alive, and not be restricted to only certain teams, he's absolute S tier in my book at least. And yes, I consider Fu Xuan still an S tier sustain. I've been using her for 2 years straight now. I'm going to entrust the damage and buffing to my damage dealer and his buffers. His synergies, however, are beyond broken, as he forms a mini Trivi Hyacinth core with Sunday. His dragon counts as the ally summon, meaning that now any DPS can gain the full Sunday buff while also advancing the dragon and potentially synergizing even better if you own Sunday's E1. It's not completely beyond busted as Tribi Hyacinth, but is still insanely good, and unlike Tribi Hyacinth, super universal for pretty much any DPS in the game. And yes, I can basically see Sunday mains already wetting their pants from here. Robin is also crazy good, as she skyrockets Danhang's attack beyond comprehension, resulting in so much high and frequent shielding that even Tingyun would have issues finding a way to die. Any AoE attack buffer and action advancer will work great with him, as more attack means better shielding, and more action advances for the DPS means more action advances for the dragon, who shields and cleanses. He's crazy strong, but of course, like every other character, has issues. So let's quickly get through them. His issues are all, in my opinion, number issues, primarily, and not actual mechanical issues, which is great. Starting off, this attack scaling shielder has the 6th lowest base attack in the game, while at the same time having higher base defense than Aventurine. I'm sure there was just some misunderstanding between Hoyo employees, and that it will be promptly fixed in version 3. Right? This, combined with the inherent flaw of preservation, can be a bit cringe. The preservation path was originally designed with death scalers in mind, which means that 60% of all limited 5-star preservation units don't have a good non-signature light cone to use. This, combined with Danhang's low base attack, means that running the Caster's tech and just giving him a high base attack light cone like Clara's or Himiko's signature light cone becomes unironically a viable option if you are free to play and don't have the Aventurine Battle Pass light cone, while also not wanting to pull for his signature. Another issue that people have is his dragon not dealing enough damage and his buffing capabilities being overall worse when compared to other sustains. He's really good at shielding and enabling Sunday's kit for any DPS, while bringing a ton of mini synergies here and there, like for example his dragon applying a Naxxa's weakness implant. Man, Naxxa just really keeps on winning, huh? But as always, there's one group of players which aren't happy. A group which is destined to suffer for all eternity until they completely turn to cinder. I'm of course talking about Finon mains. If you remember the World National Crisis, which was the Synergies beta, you know that Finon mains were not happy. Were Finon mains ever happy? Was there ever a time they were actually happy? Whatever. But they kept the hope up that maybe Danhang would form a triple synergy with them and then completely save everything with the power of friendship. As you can see now, that's not the case. They made Danhang Finon's best sustain, sure. But considering that every sustain for Finon sucks, that's not really hard. He does not do shit for Synergies, since his Dragon follow-up attack does not give her charges for her skill copying, and funnily enough, even has a mini anti-synergy with her, as both of them give flat attack buffs, meaning that there's slight stat oversaturation happening here. Man, they really fucking hate Synergies, don't they? Danhang can just not keep up against a third support with Finon, and also grants him only one core flame when using his skill, making him even bad at core flame generation. There's also another mini anti-synergy happening, as Danhang wants to ult as much as possible to make his dragon attack as much as possible. But once Finon transforms and departs Danhang, he can basically make his dragon attack 2 times, and then has to wait until he's back on the field to keep on ulting. To show you how bad it is, Danhang's E2 increases the amount of his enhanced dragon attacks from 2 to 4, which results in a lot of cases in a permanent enhanced dragon uptime, except for Finon, whose ult just takes an eternity to end. The harsh truth is, in my opinion at least, Hoyo just fucked up your character by not being sure on how to handle the depart mechanic, which has also fucked up Synergies pretty hard. Danhang is worse than triple supports, and of course, it sucks. And I would at least hope that they would give him some lame 1 energy effect to increase his core flame generation, but in the end, yes, you are better off with triple supports. The issue is that depending on your Finon investment, you will sooner or later reach the point where Finon cannot end fights in one ult anymore, and won't be able to go without a sustain anymore. That's where Danhang will be your only saving grace. That's basically all there is to it. I know it sucks, but hey, you are Finon mains, you kinda signed up for the entire suffering for eternity thing, right? Before we move on to the final verdict, I just have to talk about this, because of how funny it is. If you invest hard enough, and you own an S5 Phynon, an E1 Sunday, an E1 Synergies, and an E4 Dan Heng, you will reach exactly 100% Death Ignore. It's so specific and funny that there is absolutely no fucking way it's coincidental that it does not even overcap a little bit. So yeah, better keep spending. It's pretty funny how concerned we were with Dan Heng ending up as a Phynon slave, only for him to be an universal powerhouse that works with ton of other teams better than with Phynon. Anaxa is incredible with Sunday and or Synergies quad skill for the dragon, as it also applies weaknesses for him. He's amazing for Archer, as that guy does not really understand what the definition of a turn-based game is. Saber is amazing, Fei Zhao is great, like you even have some dot players doing the average dot player things. So in conclusion, is Dan Heng Peter good? Absolutely. I think he's crazy strong, super flexible, and honestly, I genuinely believe Hoyo will nerf his sustain in V3 because his shields are genuinely out of this world. I believe this guy can sustain even in high protocol simulated universe runs without any issues. If this guy is actually free, he's without a doubt the strongest free-to-play character in Honkai Star Rail just because of his flexibility, and will significantly increase the account power of both veteran free-to-play players and brand new players by a ton. His synergies, especially with Sunday, are just mind-blowing, and him being arguably Archer's best sustain is even funnier considering that Archer is free as well. Even if he doesn't end up being free, he's still great and absolutely worth pulling if you like Dan Heng. And also pretty much forever usable since he's a sustain. You can even consider pulling for his E1, as it just straight up 15% res pen for his bondmate, which is a crazy strong Eidolon. Most sustains have to go up to E6 for res pen, so yeah, I will keep a close eye on the beta. But I'm honestly overall very happy with his current state, and I do hope that V3 won't change my opinion about him. Tell me your opinion about Peter and whether you agree or disagree with me. Consider subscribing if you watched this far, and I will hopefully see you in the next one.